of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could you please make sure that your cell phones are turned off or on silent? There's a lot of issues going on up here this evening. Do you want to do Mr. Wallace first? So seeing that there's no public forum,
Yeah, so just as we're starting, I know sometimes we have presentations. One of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention today, last night, we had our senior awards gala for all of our seniors. And at that senior gala, we were able to present scholarships and awards, both for academic and athletic performances for all, any of our seniors that might have received that recognition. Senator Helming also came last night and presented a special award to one of our seniors, Logan Corto, for all of his successes in overcoming obstacles over the last several years. Mr. Welcher, our athletic director, has worked on, anybody that's been in our high school gym knows that we have displayed in our high school gym all of our state championship banners for various teams or individuals that have received that state championship designation. So tonight, Mr. Wallace and Mr. Taylor are holding up for you the next banner that will be going in our high school gymnasium for Logan Corto, and you can see over the last 3 school years some of Logan's outstanding accomplishments, both in outdoor track in the spring and then also indoor track during the winter. So just recently Logan wrapped up his outdoor track and field season with 4 state championships this fall and 3 more this winter. So 7 state championships this year from Logan. So we're gonna display this up in our gymnasium. So again, just an opportunity to celebrate some worthy student, in this case Logan Corto, graduating senior.
let's give him a
Shout out to Mrs. Slocum and Mr. Briggs also for the amount of support and effort they have put into helping Logan get here. Because they have both also.
Yeah.
Quite the trio.
Yes.
I love the picture. I don't know who took that, but that's a fantastic picture. of him,
Yes.
So.
So we're planning on hanging this tomorrow, so it's up for graduation.
Tomorrow. Today. Awesome.
Might not be tonight.
Well, thank you very much for bringing that in.
I have no other.
Okay, did you want to speak to the code of conduct?
Yes, so this evening, if anybody has been on our website or seen publicly posted, this evening we had our code of conduct public hearing as required by law, and we that starts our 30-day window for approval. So each year we have a committee of people, building administrators, teachers, faculty, and staff that meet to review the code of conduct, make some recommended changes to it, just for it to stay current. I would summarize this particular rendition of our code of conduct to meet no major changes, really just some semantics and some year-to-year updates. But this starts our 30-day window, so by law we're required to leave this public comment area open for 30 days. So anybody who was not at the public hearing this evening can go and get a copy of this on our board agenda, and can follow up with their appropriate chain of command, maybe through their building principal or administrator. And 30 days from now, the board would see a resolution to adopt and approve the code of conduct with those changes in place. So it will not be at the July meeting, 30 days, it'll be at our August meeting.
So for the folks watching at home, if they have a concern or have a suggestion, they are to, if they're not, they don't have a principal, who do they contact? Is it just?
Do you have a specific example of who wouldn't? They could certainly reach out to my office if they weren't sure where to send that concern to.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions regarding that? Okay, so we'll see that again in August.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to see the minutes of the regular meeting of June fifth. Could I have a motion, please? Mrs. Fold and a second by Mrs. Allen. Any questions, corrections? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. This is the board, I would take all of the financial reports. Mrs. Bliss and a second by Mrs. Decker. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. There was a late addition to this, but I would take a motion for all of it, or Mrs. Folds? All of the consent agenda in a second. Mrs. Dingman? Okay, it's a pretty good group here, so are there any questions?
I know I asked this in the email and maybe I didn't see it, the response. Do we plan on having JV boys soccer? Are we still looking for a coach?
Still,
What is
yeah,
the plan?
still looking, right?
Okay, so we are still planning on having a
Yes.
program we had.
Yep, the
before.
numbers are strong enough to support that, yes, thankfully,
Yeah, that's great.
yes. In both, I mean, I know we've already appointed girls, but both programs, you know, our numbers are strong again, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Are you ready?
Mrs. Decker,
Yes.
Mrs. Bliss,
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman,
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Allen,
Yes.
Mrs. Folds,
Yes.
and Mrs. Madigan.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Devaney. Changing that. Okay, any questions on the administrative reports?
You missed F.
I don't know why. Yeah, sorry.
I'll make a motion
Thank
to
you.
approve F1 through 11.
All of them?
That would be all of them?
Deal? Second, Mrs. Kaiser? I don't know how I just get that huge chunk. Questions?
Question
Yes.
on the RCA, so F7 on the
Seven.
contract.
Okay.
Number 4, health insurance, so my question was sort of two-part, where the percentage would make sense, and thank you for answering that, but then it says the board shall provide, and I wasn't sure if that was a typo, or if it's supposed to say that.
It's the district.
What?
It's the district provides.
Which one are you looking at?
4A, I believe you're talking about 4A.
4A, right, so it reads
It says
the
the
board,
board
and
shall provide,
I
but it's
think
the
that was the only
district.
place that said the board, I think every other place said the district, so
Yeah.
I didn't see that it was corrected, so I just wanted to double check that, I guess, real quick.
I would,
Correct it?
I would see that as semantics in
Okay.
one way or another, because the
Okay.
board, you know, the district is still providing those things, but the board is approving the contract, as is, so,
Right.
it wouldn't require separate action from the board
Right.
to provide those coverages,
So what you're saying is it's okay as it is?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you, and I did have another question on F10. Sorry, just a minute.
The big one.
I'm sorry.
You're good?
Take your time.
The contract acceptance. I don't remember, it's, so in Exhibit B, which is at the very end of that document, just a couple of questions on the things that were listed, but more so, if there's, I think we did talk about that if there were some ancillary things that, could be done, if there's like a wish list, if you will. So that's not obviously named in here, that's to figure out down the road if
It's just the
if there's room for that, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
those, you know, so technically those would be alternates. So
Okay.
we built in, as we start to go through our different phases, depending on where those bid numbers fall, if we end up with additional money that's unspent, we have, through our BCS and some other work, we have a list of alternate things that we could add into the project.
Okay.
So what we're approving is the contract though for the
To use them.
architect, for the architect. And the architect is required to include what the scope is, but it will change. You'll see addendums throughout this whole process. But what we're approving is just the King contract, not necessarily like the line item of what's taking place.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody?
Okay. Mrs. Foltz?
Yes.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bliss?
Yes.
Mrs. Decker?
Yes.
And Mrs. Madigan?
Yes. Thank you.
I did just want to thank Jody for her donation.
Thank you.
Absolutely, yep, I'll make sure we send out correspondence
Thank you.
accordingly.
Okay, now are there any questions on administrative reports? Okay. We're gonna move on. It's funny that we were just talking about committee updates. Mrs. Allen, would you like to start?
Sure. Infinite.
I was just gonna say, you'll probably be the last one too.
The policy committee is slated to meet again after the reorganizational meeting, July 8th, so we'll have a update at that point. There isn't really no update on that committee at this point in time.
Okay.
The community center, I think I mentioned last meeting that there's been a subcommittee that's been formed to review and possibly revise the bylaws. And that committee met on June 13th and did put together, made it through the first 4 articles of the bylaws and proposed some changes. So the changes had to do with membership and length of term and the duties of the advisory board. But there are a lot of articles to get through. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, it's not too bad. But maybe there's like 10 different sections, so the idea is that the subcommittee is going to meet ahead of every regularly scheduled monthly meeting to try to have some edits prepared to bring back to the advisory board. So once the bylaws as a whole have been reviewed and recommendations made to the advisory board, and the advisory board is in agreement, then it'll come to the Board of Education for review and discussion.
Kim, what's this, how many is the subcommittee out of the full committee?
4 people out of 9.
Okay.
So that's just a quick update on the bylaws, and then also discussed at the last meeting was proposal for rate membership, which I know is a little bit later on.
Yeah,
our agenda,
we could
so
talk
we'll get
about
to
that, yeah.
And I think that's it.
Okay, does anyone else have a committee they'd like to report out on? Alrighty. We'll keep moving then. Okay. We're gonna talk about the live streaming meeting, so just to clarify, what we're talking about is not having a video camera anymore for meetings at all, or continuing to live stream them, so that's kind of what your 2 options are. So we discussed a little bit, Jolene wasn't able to be here at the last meeting, so we didn't wanna make a decision without her being able to weigh in, so if it's okay, Mrs. Bliss, I'd like to start with you, if you have any thoughts on the subject.
Yeah, so I kind of have thought about it a little bit differently, being that my seat here is going to be ending. And as I've thought of how I'd like to still stay involved, although I won't be able to make the meetings, I do like the idea of being able to tune into the meetings and stay up to date on what's going on. It's a catch-22. I mean, there are things that can happen that can come back to haunt the district. so it can work against us at times, but it also shows great transparency on the district's behalf. I wouldn't say that I'd be strongly against getting rid of them, but I would also be for keeping them.
Okay, so basically you're neutral.
Yeah, and I don't know where everybody else stood last time,
No, that's
but,
okay.
I would lean toward keeping them live, but I'm really good either way.
I would agree with that. I think, in order to be as transparent as possible and to be as accessible as possible to the community, we really should keep them. I've just heard anecdotally from people that do listen in, and I think it just makes sense. And yes, there is always risk, but I think, the rewards outweigh that risk.
I agree. I think keeping it is, I mean, like Stephanie kind of commented, you know, even if it's 20 people or 200 people that watch it after, it helps keep people involved and up to date on what's going on in the district, so I say we keep it.
A lot of times you might have somebody that goes and watches it, and maybe not 100 people watch it, but you've got somebody that goes and watches it, and then they share the information from the meeting, so more people are staying informed with what's going on, but only one watched.
I've had a handful of people reach out to me since the last meeting, thanking me for like saying that we should keep them, and reiterating a lot of the reasons that I had said, but I feel strongly to keep them. I think in a digital era that we're in, I don't see a reason not to.
Okay.
I would be strongly against not live streaming.
Gotcha. I would say, overall, there's probably not much reason to have more discussion then, so we'll move forward keeping the meetings as is. Only thing that I would say, and I don't know if this is possible, the presentations like we just had from Mr. Wallace and Mr. Taylor, I think are part of the great things that we showcase here. I know that that's not on camera. I don't know if there's any you can see that. It goes over to them and like you can see oh, well then I don't have any suggestions. Thanks a lot. Okay. I'm gonna start running back and forth back here.
See what happens.
Perfect, yeah, me fall down. Okay, well, I'm glad that we had the discussion. If something, is to change or someone has a different idea or concern, then we should bring it up at that time and we'll have that discussion again. Okay, we're gonna move on to talking about the community center rates. So, Mr. Van Orman, would you mind kind of giving us a background of what was presented from Mr. Welcher?
I believe, and Kim might be able to elaborate on it a little bit more. There's been some ongoing discussion at the advisory board level. Some of that started as a result of some audit information that was presented about the financial standing of the community center and their kind of progress going forward. So I believe the advisory board started to have some conversations about taking a look at the rates, what the rates were. I believe the last time the rates were adjusted was, I'll say, 5 to 6 years ago. You might have a more specific date, but it's been a small chunk of time since the rates have been looked at. So the Community Center Advisory Board was looking at, I believe, a 10% increase from some of all the different categories, in district, out of district, family, single, that they use their chart. They also we're looking at changing the rates for the use of the pool exclusively and or the community center. That is it the gym? Is that how it's listed? Yeah. So a standard rate increase for both of those two items.
So, can I ask what kind of dollar amount would be equated to this 10% increase?
Yeah, where are we at?
Sure. I guess on the high end, it would be around like $32 for an in-district family increase for the year, you know. So the chart is broken down yearly, 6 month, or monthly. So it's hard, and then there's in-district family, in-district individual, senior, student, so there's a lot of criteria that go into the chart. So I think I can, I just said, whatever I said, $32 for in-district family annual, but then it's a $5 monthly increase for that same criteria, so like it just.
What I meant was, if you were to increase your current membership by 10%,
what are
what
those
kind of
numbers?
dollar amount does that look like, do you know?
I don't wanna misquote, because we had proposed a higher increase at
Okay.
first, and I don't wanna misquote, cause I think the number I have is for the higher percentage.
Okay,
But the discussion for the rate increase started with, it's been X amount of years since there's been a membership rate increase.
okay,
Then that coupled into the meeting that we had in April, so,
okay.
with you and the superintendent. So I think that it had been something that was set in motion where the board was kind of thinking about that anyway, and then the conversation has devolved.
Yeah, so the only reason that I asked, I think at the larger group conversation that we had was that, and I had shared this with you, that my understanding was that there was the potential of, really doubling the, the visitor pass or the one-day pass or whatever it's called.
The day use.
Yes, and, because from what I understood from Danielle, the dollar amount was like $20,000 or something with that kind of increase. I'm just trying to guess, so please correct me, but, if that, I think at the time, the thought was if that was trying to make up some sort of deficit,
Right.
It's not going to do that. So my only question would be, is that the way I read it, that it was an increase overall for membership. I did not see a visitor day pass increase.
Correct.
So my question would be, is that the people that we wanna be hitting are people that are using it all the time, or would we want to charge more for people that would be the day rate? Now, I'm not saying that that's our
Right.
discussion to have, but I just wonder if there should be some sort of value for your long-standing district members that are using the facility all the time and might be on like a fixed income, and it might be a little bit more of a challenge, but that's just my opinion.
I agree.
What are your membership numbers?
Search through paperwork.
I know, all this paper, I don't have
In
that
general,
information.
like,
So I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think
No, you're
that
good.
Mr. Welcher put that in his admin report. I wanna say it's like eight something, 860 something, maybe.
and did, you guys take a look at what our neighboring community centers are at? Where are we at in line with them?
With membership or with the fees?
Well, I guess both.
I don't know about membership. I don't think that criteria was researched. The membership fees were researched though. And we are the lowest in the
Okay.
area. So that was part of the impetus behind that too, was
Will the 10% still keep us on the
lower
lower
than.
end?
Mhm.
So,
I
is-
love-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna point out, I don't disagree that we could raise the rates potentially, but, I think we're closing the pool down.
So that was
soon
actually
enough,
gonna be
and
my
so
comment.
Is this
Right.
really a great time to raise rates when we're already kind of getting
Gonna
rid
be
of
shut
something?
down.
Right, like that's a big thing that people, like, I know my whole family is members and we use the pool, and if the pool's not open and we're raising membership rates,
The
are
timing
we
might
gonna
not.
see the attrition just in the number of members because of those two things combined?
My history with, the financials of the community center, and I know this is outside of my role sitting here right now, but I had a lot of discussions with the various different people who ran the community center over the years, and it has always not been a profitable establishment. And I think that what we were discovering is you're not really gonna make up that difference in raising your membership rates. You might be able to decrease it a little bit. But other things are, what other programs can you run, what other, are there grants that people can look at out there and try and find to help supplement? When this community center was built, it was built on the preface of having volunteers that were going to work it, which is why it was able to, it's supposed to be self-sustaining. And over time, now people don't volunteer their time anymore. and people are gonna be what costs you the most money
Absolutely.
to run that, but, you know, maybe if there's some other brainstorming that can happen about kickball leagues and different things that could bring in kids, and, I know those are small pieces too, but you might be able to do a little bit of damage control with the 10%, but it's gonna have to be a much bigger conversation.
Right.
Yeah, I don't necessarily believe that it's from a standpoint of damage control. It's more from the perspective of, you nailed it, right? It was, overhead is the biggest expense for that center. So with minimum wage increasing.
Yep.
Just looking at the numbers in the GL, like, it just makes sense to increase the rates or do something to help offset the wage increase, so.
A big conversation before, and this was not a popular one, was looking at limiting the hours or changing the hours. Maybe in the middle of the day, it's not open. Maybe it's just for school use, so you're not paying your front desk person in the middle of the day when the school's using the facility. It's not necessarily a popular decision, not saying it's the way to go or not go, but another piece of the puzzle to potentially look at for your overhead.
I guess what I would say is, since there's no motion to vote on this would be information if you wouldn't mind bringing back to your group, and just for some feedback, and, you know, maybe it's a good action item, but maybe after the pool is back open and
Just to speak to that for a
refurbished.
moment, that has been topic of conversation amongst the advisory board, and we're looking at what, the end of 25-ish, give or take.
Yeah, it's, there's a couple pieces that are really variables in there. One is our submission timeline to New York State, the SED for approval. On that, right now, we're looking at a September submission for that, and to submit the plans for approval for the pool. Some of this will be determined by when that approval is granted. That timeline ended of September. We're also expecting to see a third-party review process come through, which should help speed up. Right now, our first submission on our capital project is running about a 6 to 7 month lead time on review. With a third-party review, it should, yes, not ideal. The third-party review should drop that down quite a bit. So if we go into September, we get in the queue, third-party review, it might be a much shorter review timeline. And then, so the best case scenario, the quickest case scenario we'd be looking at is as early as November. Late November would be the absolute most quickest from where we are right now. Any changes to those timelines would push us back. And then you have to start looking at the logistics with the service providers on where they are with their work schedules and what subcontractors have already in the works and where that goes. So, we'll work with the community center to see where the least impactful time is to make those changes. Also maximizing the fiscal responsibility of when is the best time to get that work done. So that's kind of piece one. Piece two is the total scope of the work right now is a little bit unknown. They have to do some exploratory work on the drainage systems within there. So we know that there's going to be some tile work and some drainage work, but to the level that's needed, we're unsure of exactly how deep that will be until we can close the pool and do some exploratory, right? Like until you can start cutting holes in the wall to see what's behind it, you don't know exactly the scope of that work. So
we don't even necessarily know how long it's going to be down or what time frame that's.
correct. Worst case scenario, you'd probably be looking at about 12 months.
But it's unavailable?
That would be worst case scenario.
So the advisory board has discussed, looking into solutions like reciprocity, like could we partner with Woolgate or neighboring pools to reciprocate, that if they ever had a project where they were closed, they could come here. So, again, it's just kind of in that.
Yeah.
So back to whether or not this is a good time to raise the rates, not knowing when the pool would actually close. I thought maybe was to do it now because it could be up to 2 years or so before that has to happen. Otherwise, we'd have to wait to increase the rates until after the project was completed, so.
It's good that was considered then.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, yeah, if you wouldn't mind giving us feedback back and then see if, you know, if the advisory board still kind of sits in the same pot, then we need to have this conversation again and see where we can come out.
And the membership number is.
878.
Yeah, 878 is the, just for the board's information, so it's under 1,000.
Okay.
And I think, yeah, it's hard when it's under, it's high, but it's low.
Yeah,
That's lower than I would have anticipated it being.
agreed. Okay, we just have one more item that's not on the agenda, and it's to quickly embarrass Mrs. Bliss.
Oh, Lord.
So,
I'm just gonna take my plaque and go.
yeah. So just, anyone that wasn't in the room, we had a retreat earlier where Mrs. Bliss gave this really nice little speech about how it was to be a part of this board, and she almost had a little bit of a tear in my eye, so good thing she stopped talking, so I didn't have to get upset.
That one
So-
of mine too, I had.
And, so this is Jolene's last meeting, and I think I speak for the rest of the group. But we are incredibly thrilled to have you be a part of this group. I mean, I'm lucky enough to, know Jolene for most of my life, so, she's always, upfront and helpful and friendly and always wants to do the best for other people, especially the students of this district, so, we can't say enough good things about you. Thank you so much for the time and dedication that you not only spent on the board, but this district in general as an employee, as a coach, as a student advocate. So I hope that you know that we think very fondly of you, and thank you so much for everything that you've done.
Thank you so much.
This is the moment when Eric's gonna zoom right in on your face until you cry.
Or if she stands up.
Yeah.
If I move enough, it'll look right at me.
Your commitment and leadership has truly made a positive impact on all of us, staff,
Absolutely.
students, us, so thank you so much for everything that you do.
One of a kind,
and
Jolene.
will continue to do.
Yeah, this, try not to cry, but if you really know me, you know I'm an emotional person, but, this district, as many of you know, I've been a part of this district since I started in kindergarten. This district means a lot to me, and I worked here for 12 years, it meant a lot to me then, doing good things, and in the position that I was in a financial position, think about that job as doing good things for kids, but it really is, and you start to learn and see every position in this district, the purpose is to do good things for kids. And when I came onto the board, it was a rather difficult time to come onto the board here, and the mission was to do good things for kids. I'm incredibly proud of what this board and what this district has overcome. I'm pleased and proud to say I've been a part of it. I will continue to love this district and the students of this school. And I'm not gonna go away. Maybe I'll coach again someday. I do miss coaching.
We need a
Boys JV coach? No. But it will be nice to have my next year with my son graduating next year, so I won't have to
play JVs.
come to.
We're gonna miss you, but we would appreciate not a picture of the next board meeting with you in your pajamas at 8:30, watching it live streamed, because now you'll be able to.
Yes, exactly. And I wanna thank the administration. It's not an easy job what you guys do, and it truly is a teamwork. It's teamwork from the board to the superintendent to the administration to the rest of the staff and then down to our kiddos. So thank everybody for really treating me well as a board member as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Jolene.
And best of luck to Chris to come on and
Thank you, Jolene.
sit in this crazy seat.
All right, with that being said, Mrs. Bliss, could I have a motion to adjourn?
You
Since
sure
it's your last
can.
one, and a second by Mrs. Dingman. Thank you very much.
That was a quick one too.
I know.
Well, I would say we've been here since the first.